Postmodernism versus Modernism, for idiots. By adding the playful for idiots. I present this in a postmodern way by use of irony and playfulness. By assuming something which might be complicated and considered important, and by some elitists can be put across in a few minutes on YouTube, I'm also being postmodern. If modernity took things seriously, and aimed at a general consensus, and had hierarchies, and one knew one's place but could climb up from it, in postmodernity the hierarchical structures, tree-like with a root, are replaced by rhizomic ones, which spread across a surface in which any particular point of view, work of art, or whatever can be considered as valid as each other, though not all the same. So I can think the Rolling Stones the greatest in music, and this is more valid as music for me than Mozart. You may think this is a reasonable idea, then you are pomo. If you think some music is objectively, that is despite opinion, better than other music, then you are modern. If you think it's okay to rate a sitcom or rom-com as dramatically the same or better than Shakespeare, then you are pomo. Modernism aimed at absolutes, utopia, the truth. These are called meta-narratives. Big stories which we all follow. If we do so unknowingly, that's been called ideology. Note, as I'm making these complex things simple, I'm probably missing important detail and subtle arguments. I am dumbing things down, making knowledge available for everyone, and allowing everyone an equal voice and an equally valid opinion. You might guess what this is. How then did this radical change occur? One from modernity and the idea of progress and universal truth to that of a disbelief, mistrust in these ideas of universal truths, so that a postmodern view of things is often ironic, not fixed, or not stable. Postmodernity can even allow one to consider oneself not postmodern, as it allows everyone an equal voice. While modernity failed, or if it succeeded, it completed itself. So this means you can't go back to modernity, but we can ignore the postmodern condition. And many do. They think we can still be modern. But if so, then this modern is now different. Like when a movie finishes, you then know the outcome. You cannot see it again in the same way if you know the end. You cannot see the film as something new. Newness is lost once you've seen the film. But why not make a new film with a different story? Well, in modernity, the idea is to be new, not just different. The idea is to be new and better. And like washing powder, Over time, the successive new improved versions become suspect. As the years go by, new improved washes whiter than ever seems an empty claim. But more than that, modernity was not only about newness, but about truth, and truth to materials. And its method was analysis. So a building should reveal both what it's made of and how it works as a structure. Unlike, say, a Victorian building which looks like it's built from stone, but is a facade hiding the steel framework. Or a bank designed in the style of a Greek temple which isn't being true to its function. Let's look at some examples. We will first use architecture. Buildings are big and easy to see. Modern architecture, using the modern idea of truth to materials, used ideas of science and logic. Science, rationality, logic, and mathematics were seen as the paradigm, the model of access to objective truth. So philosophy and art, if they copied these models, would achieve an objective universal value, as would also politics and how we think and live in the world. The truth of science is true regardless of one's opinion, at least for modernists. So a modern architecture should be in modernist terms likewise. A building as such would be universally good, true, and so therefore beautiful. Truth is beauty, beauty is truth. Le Corbusier was a very important and influential modern architect. There were many others, but they all followed much the same modernist ideas. Lots of decorative Victorian buildings were demolished and replaced by modern buildings in the last century. Corbusier disliked the idea of decoration. It was not part of the building's structure, but stuck on, and so decoration is pointless. A building should look like its function, Le Corbusier said. A house is a machine for living in. There are many other examples of this aesthetic in design, even in fashion. What went wrong with modernism? Why did it end? It has been said that modernism ended at 3:32 p.m. on July 15, 1972, at least in architecture. Though modernist buildings were built after this date, it's a good reference point. A good example. A modernist would see a much more complicated process, but for Pomo it works, and is kind of fun to see it that way. What happened was at 3:32 p.m. on July 15, 1972, a housing estate called Pruitt Ago in St. Louis, USA, was blown up. Built with the noble ideas of modernism, it became a place of vandalism, crime, and graffiti. No one wanted to live there. so it was demolished. Since that time many other cities in the sky have been demolished. For people, certainly the people in these housing complexes, truth and beauty was more than logic, science, and mathematics. This idea of truth not being merely reason is a philosophic criticism of modernity. It can be found in the work of Heidegger. What replaced modernism in architecture was postmodern, the key work, a book by Robert Venturi, Denise Scott Brown, and Stephen Isener, called Learning from Las Vegas, in which decoration and playfulness in designs which were not afraid of being decorative, and even kitsch was proposed. In the fine arts, pop art might be considered similar, but it still had a modernist idea about it. This again was truth to materials. So the illusion of perspective is bad. Flatness is good, as it reveals the truth of a painting. And paint covers, drips, pores, and stains. This is the modernist justification for such modern works of art. A justification which is based on the truthfulness of the art object as not being an illusion. But some said these abstract works still had a sense of depth and spaciness. But comic books and billboard advertisements were printed on very flat paper. They were really flat. So we had some modernist excuse for pop art, but it looks a fragile one. Anyway, artists abandon flat surfaces for stuff. Minimalism, boxes, bricks. In this modern development, painting was painting, so not art. It was about paint, and not about art. And then even stuff isn't art. Art is an idea, a concept. Then, like peeling an onion to find its essence, art as objects disappeared. The tag, conceptual art, may continue, but now it is postmodern, and relates to all kinds of things like handmade beds and giant puppies made from flowers. Fun ideas. Irony. So you see how in these cases the modernist ideology failed. Or if it succeeded, reduced art to nothing but an idea. Art is art and everything else is everything else. So what can be done? Nothing. And so modern art ended. So what happened? Rather than art being nothing in Pomo, art can be anything. Anything you like. So the one big modern idea, arboreal tree, like with a root, failed, and was replaced by many shapes, forms, ideas. Pomo stuff may be simple to get, but expensive, and sometimes ironic with an in-joke. What of other things? Well, at the same time the big two meta-narratives, communism and capitalist democracy, in some cases collapsed. or they were criticized for mass consumption of resources and global warming. The single root, either capitalism or communism, as the utopia was replaced, or was added to by the many other ideas and issues of postmodernity. Postcolonialism, gay rights, Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, queer theory, LGBT rights. Feminism, alternative technology, alternative medicines, and lifestyles and religious beliefs both new and old, from shamanism to fundamentalism. You could say from a modern point of view, postmodernity looked like chaos. So it's no surprise that philosopher Giles Deleuze called his idea of reality anarchy crowned, a postmodern reality, and used the term from James Joyce. Chiasmus. Jacques Derrida deconstructed texts to find endless interpretations rather than a single fixed one. Deleuze with Guattari invoked schizophrenia as a creative process of desire. And it's been said if modernity was paranoia, worrying about being right, postmodernity is schizophrenia of being many, any, and everything. But what of other things, like postmodern literature, or films, etc.? Well, I've given some examples in art, and touched on philosophy, but I'm not the single source of fixed knowledge. That's long gone and not possible. And of course the greatest example of the rhizome is the internet. So Google and Wiki, and of course Pomo writers do this in their art, as you might guess. So go on Google, Flarv Poetry. And have a nice day. I'm missing you already.